Hello and welcome to this fairly short and hopefully quite informative and interesting video on plasticizers, and more specifically the controversy that surrounds their use. Now, you may have heard the term plasticizer before, but what are they, how do they work, and why is their use so controversial? Well, to start with, I want to introduce this Rubik's Cube. Now, when we look at this, we can tell that it's quite brittle, quite hard. You can't squash it, you can't bend it, it's solid. And then we can look at this power cable, which is quite the opposite. You can bend it, it's soft, it's pliable. But what if I told you that both of these things are made out of the exact same polymer, PVC? So how is it that the same polymer can have such different properties between different products? Well, the answer is plasticizers. Plasticizers are used to plasticize and soften polymers. To give a fairly simple analogy on how plasticizers work, I want to start by having you think of a plate of spaghetti, a plate of plain, overcooked spaghetti to be more precise. Now, I know that sounds weird, but stick with me, it will make sense. So, thinking of this plate of overcooked and plain spaghetti, anyone that's had a plate of spaghetti like this before will know that it will all stick together. All the strands of spaghetti will stick together and they'll form almost like a brick of spaghetti that it doesn't move very much, it's pretty much solid. But now I want you to imagine that same plate of spaghetti but with sauce on it. And obviously the sauce would help kind of lubricate those strands of spaghetti and they'd no longer stick to each other, and it would be freer to move and it wouldn't all stick together. You wouldn't be left with a solid brick. You'd be left with something that's more fluid and more easily manipulable, which is essentially what plasticizers do to polymers. You see, a polymer we can think of as a bit like spaghetti. They're long chain molecules which all interact with each other and stick to each other, if you like, and that's what makes them hard, as in the Rubik's Cube. The plasticizers, however, act a bit like the sauce in our analogy, and they weaken the interactions between the polymer molecules and make them softer, more fluid, and more easily manipulable. Now, they do this by binding to the actual polymer molecules, which puts more space between each polymer chain and thus reduces any intermolecular interactions between the polymer chains, meaning that they're freer to move and they stick to each other less. And thus the whole structure becomes more fluid and more easily manipulable. Now, you might be thinking, well, that all sounds brilliant, they sound really useful, and where's the controversy behind their use? And that comes from the fact that in recent years, concerns have been raised over the health and safety of a specific group of plasticizers known as phthalates. And phthalates are a group of plasticizers that are all esters of phthalic acid. And they can be found everywhere, from personal care products like shampoo and soap and fragrances, to electrical equipment and medical equipment, and even children's toys. They're everywhere, but their main use is to, as we've seen earlier with the power cable, soften PVC, or plasticize PVC. Now, you may be wondering, what are some of these health and safety risks? And a recent study has looked into these risks, and one of them being that a specific phthalate known as DBP, which is dibutyl phthalate, has been associated with tumour promoting activity, meaning that it can, if you're exposed to it, lead to the formation of tumours. This study also looked into the potential endocrine disrupting effects of phthalates. And if you didn't know, the endocrine system is essentially your body's chemical messenger system. And this is of particular concern, as if it's disrupted, it can have adverse effects on the male reproductive system and development in children. In men, it can lead to a low sperm count, histological changes in the testes, and reduced fertility. In women and children, it can lead to increased chances of prenatal motility, low birth weight, and malformations in children. All of this, however, is based on animal studies, and there is currently no evidence to suggest that it translates into humans. These health fears actually prompted the UK government to impose restrictions on phthalates use in electrical and electronic equipment, or EE for short, in July of 2019. This will prohibit any electrical and electronic equipment from being placed onto the market if it contains certain phthalates, those phthalates being BBP, DHP, DBP or DIBP. Now, it's my personal opinion that we need to do more research into phthalates and their effects on the human body. I think that they're very, very useful chemicals in terms of manufacturing. However, I feel the health risks are very genuine and need more research. But that's just my personal opinion, it doesn't have to be yours. And I really hope that this video has given you enough information and it's interested you enough to be able to go away and form your own opinion on the matter. I'd like to thank you very, very much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.